And you're working on some other stories as well, correct?
Yeah, well, I say busy. What I try to do, whether I'm doing my gig with the Millennial and Human Events, or whether I'm doing the independent journalism, is I don't want to recycle news like a lot of YouTubers out there just recycle news clip after news clip after news clip and have people yelling at Justin Trudeau. I want to interview the people who are actually making the news, like I've always done. And I interviewed a fascinating woman who I didn't even know lived in Ottawa until I saw her on Redacted. And that's Regina Wattiel, who is a PhD in statistics, and she has totally demolished a Trudeau-funded study of COVID that was completely fraudulent. And it was a pleasure to talk to her and the pleasure to get her story out there and to get her book out there, because I kid you not, when she went on Redacted about a week ago or more, she mentioned her book. It's called Fistman's Fraud, available on Amazon. And she was saying had real trouble selling it because they're not really facilitating it if it's about COVID. Clayton and Natalie Morris said, let's put this book to the top of the list. So they said, everybody listening, go out, buy a copy. By the following morning, I kid you not, it was #1 in Canada, #1 Amazon book in Canada. And I had her on the show a day later, on my show a day later, to talk about not only that phenomena, but to talk about this study that she had totally demolished.
Right. So she exposed the fraudulent arguments that we needed to go into lockdowns, and good for her for doing that, because I think there are still people who think it was a good idea, although their numbers seem to be shrinking. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, the amazing thing is she took a look at the study. And all you have to do is read the first paragraph to realize the study's based on nothing. It's not based on real people. It's based on a model that is highly suspect, and it's based on the assumption that vaccinated people are causing the COVID virus to persist. It's based on that assumption, and they carry on from there, based on that. And of course, that's not even vaguely scientific. And she points this out, and I asked her, have you been challenged at all by the authors of this report? Anyone threaten you with a lawsuit? She says, nothing. Nobody has come back on me because they know she's got them. She knows this thing is completely accurate, what she's put out there in this book. And it makes you sick, though, because we paid for this. Canadian taxpayers paid for this report. It was facilitated by the University of Toronto, which is getting lots of money from Big Pharma, especially Moderna. It's being completely facilitated by people who have the interest of selling this vaccine to us and keeping the vaccine out there. And the persisting in saying that if you don't get the vaccine, you're somehow a danger to society. And of course we know now that getting the vaccine, and I got it twice. Yeah, I had buyer remorse, but I got it twice. Didn't prevent you from getting COVID. Not at all. Justin Trudeau supposedly got 3 shots, and he had COVID 3 times. So what kind of an advertisement is that? But obviously, this vaccine was completely ineffective in preventing anybody from getting COVID. And whether you got it or not, you weren't posing a danger to anybody. So
Absolutely.
It makes you mad what the government does with their money.
Can you hang in for another segment? Because I want to run past this whole hair on fire media situation with Tucker Carlson going to Russia. Because so what? He's in Russia. He's going to interview, or has already interviewed, Putin. Can you hang in?
Yeah.
David Krayden will be back.
You're listening to the Marc Patrone radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk SAUGA 960.
We're back with more on News Talk SAUGA 960. So very glad you could join us on this Tuesday edition of the show. David Krayden joining us from the nation's capital. I don't know where you stand on this story. I personally think it's great that Tucker Carlson has gone to Russia to interview Vladimir Putin, but CNN thinks it's a terrible idea. Let's listen.
To court the MAGA GOP in the United States. In fact, one of the leaders of the MAGA GOP is in Moscow tonight. It's the man you see here with the MAGA leader, Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson. Possibly there in Moscow to interview Putin. Definitely there as a Putin-supporting celebrity. Just listen to how Russian state media is breathlessly celebrating his visit.
Independent journalist Tucker Carlson has flown to Russia from the U.S. via Turkey to Vnukovo Airport. He saw Spartacus Ballet at the Bolshoi Theater, had lunch in a nice restaurant, went for a ride around town, rode the...
So what? I mean, so that proves that somehow Tucker Carlson approves of the Russian invasion of Ukraine? What is going on here with the media, David?
The media is working for the military-industrial complex. And they're taking their talking points from the National Security Agency and from the Department of Defense and from all of those generals who have jobs on MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN, who tell the journalists what they're supposed to think about Russia. Now, Tucker Carlson visiting Russia is wonderful. He's a journalist. That's what he's supposed to be doing. I'd like to remind people as well that neither Canada nor the United States is at war with Russia. We've never been at war with Russia. In fact, Russia was our ally in two world wars. And this is absolutely absurd to say we can't interview Vladimir Putin because somehow he's the enemy. And even if he was the enemy, we have a right to interview him as journalists. This war in Ukraine is farcical to begin with because Russia, it doesn't go back 2 years. It goes back to 2014 when Ukraine invaded the Donbass region. That's something you'll never hear from the mainstream media. We should not be giving Ukraine billions of dollars because it's disappearing in the black hole of Kiev, and it is disappearing into that corrupt government and that clown of a president named Zelensky. But I applaud Tucker Carlson for wanting to find out what Vladimir Putin happens to think and to find out what Russia's really like. Look at the pictures of Russia today. It looks nothing like that gray country from the Soviet era. It is alive with free enterprise. It's alive with middle-class people. It's not the same country. We need to nurture Russia into a fully democratic country, not talk about going to war with it. This is insanity. It's got the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the world. This is absolute insanity. We need to understand each other much more than we ever have. So I applaud Tucker Carlson. This is a courageous thing to do because he's going to be called a traitor. It already has been. I mean, we got Bill Kristol, that phony conservative, saying that Tucker Carlson shouldn't be allowed back in the country because he dared to leave it. But what I'm hearing this morning from a lot of the folks on social media, including my old friend Benny Johnson, who I used to work with at the Daily Caller, apparently Tucker has been to the Kremlin, was there for over an hour. The interview might be done. He might have already done the interview. I hope so. I don't think he's going to come back empty-handed.
No. And he's going to get, I don't know, I want to say maybe a couple 100 million views. It's going to be stunning. This may be his most viewed interview ever. So I'm totally stoked. And good for him for going. I mean, if his trip goes over there and maybe makes people understand a little bit what their side is. And by the way, the media used to love the old USSR. They used to love the Soviet Union. They thought it was just great. But it was only when the USSR collapsed and was taken over by a man who's largely, very much a Russian nationalist that the media turned on him. I do have to ask you about one more story. And I've looked at this comment by Pierre Poilievre, who, frankly, rather grim, for lack of a better word, prognosis of Chinese infiltration of our election, their interference on behalf of Justin Trudeau. Let's look a little bit to his statement.
Justin Trudeau shares the ideology of communist China. He says that he admires the basic Chinese communist dictatorship. He admired Fidel Castro. He has brought in laws to censor his political opponents, to seize bank accounts. He's violated the constitutional rights of protesters. He's been condemned by the courts for overturning charter rights. So this is someone that agrees with communist China on most policies and on the political repression. So as a result, Beijing has interfered to help Justin Trudeau win elections. We expect this will happen again.
Yeah. This is quite stunning. If we're not electing our governments, then I guess somebody else is. And the people who are ascending to power, holding on to power, are not going to be serving our interests. I mean, this is how you destroy a country, David.
Well, that's how you destroy a country, and I think it's a two-pronged approach here to electoral fraud. Here, it's Justin Trudeau is trying to destroy our electoral system with mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting, and we talked about that last week. Yep. But yes, he does not want to stop Chinese interference because that Chinese interference is helping him, and he wants this to continue. Peter Poilievre is dead on. Justin Trudeau admires this kind of authoritarian, totalitarian approach to politics. He wants to see voters controlled. He wants to see foreign influence because it benefits him. He loves China. He loves the way the Chinese operate. Yeah, he admired Fidel Castro. Could have been his father. So this is absolutely right of Poilievre to be identifying this. But unfortunately, too, I don't know if you've noticed this, the polling indicates most Canadians really don't give a damn about this issue. And that's very unfortunate. And I've written extensively about this for the Epoch Times over the last 6 months. Those are the articles that nobody reads. Nobody really is getting into what is happening here. That foreign interference is incredibly important and pertinent to your democratic rights. If you think China should be calling the shots in our elections, you better think twice about what you think elections are.
Yeah, they don't really. I agree. The people don't seem to understand the magnitude of the issue. And Poilievre sounds almost kind of offhand in his comments. He's not pounding the desk with his fist. He's just saying, your current leader, Justin Trudeau, is allowing this to happen. Pretty bad. I mean, it's collusion. That's what it is. And if you think that Chinese communism is the way to go in terms of the future of Canada, well, I think you're going to regret it when your kids are not free anymore. I mean, if the Chinese could have democracy today, they would absolutely take it over the dictatorship that they have now. We're talking about one-party rule over the country, and that's where this prime minister is moving us into. I hope we're able to get out of it. I mean, if they rig the next election, I'm not sure that we're not going to be stuck in a situation where authoritarianism is the order of the day in Canada. Last word to you, my friend.
Well, clearly that is the track of Justin Trudeau, to further and further into authoritarianism. The fact that he is appealing the federal court decision that the invocation of the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional, unreasonable, and unjustified, despite the fact that we now know, and beyond a doubt, that he based all of his decision-making on fake, fraudulent, fabricated intelligence about the Freedom Convoy having somehow some connection to white supremacy or nationalist or far-right groups. It was all made up. It was all crap. And it's out there now for the public to see. And the fact that Justin Trudeau has the gall to continue to maintain he had a shred of evidence, he had any reason at all to use the full force of the police and the state against peaceful protesters in Ottawa, it's amazing how incredibly dense this man is, or how incredibly evil he is in terms of working towards his power.
Yep. David Crayden. Follow him at David Crayden, at David Crayden. You want to follow him on Twitter. Thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate it.
Hi, this is David Crayden from Crayden's Right and Stand on Guard. Join the resistance. Resolve to resist. Become a member of this station. I've been practicing journalism in one form or another for over 30 years. I've worked in print, radio, and television for a lot of prestigious publications and media outlets. I was an Armed Forces Public Affairs officer. I worked in Parliament Hill. I know how Ottawa works, and I know how corrupt federal government can be. But you can play a part in opposing Justin Trudeau's government and Justin Trudeau's plans for Canada. you can become a part of the Kraydens Right Resistance. Now, I urge you today, please support this station in any way you can. Ring that bell, subscribe, because that ensures you're at least going to continue to be able to watch these episodes. You'll beat the algorithm. But more importantly, I need your financial support. I hate to ask, but that's what I'm doing. I made a decision to pursue independent media because I believed it was the best possible route for me to take as a journalist and as a concerned citizen of Canada. So you can become a part of that. And at only $5, you can become a part of that on YouTube, on Substack, and with Buy Me a Coffee, a one-time donation. But I need your support. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. If you've already done that, if you're already supporting the station, thank you. But if you haven't, make that decision today.